What up, everybody? Going into the final season of Power Book Force, there's two key clues that gives us an idea about how this series will end. First being the biggest clue is that there's another spin-off coming after Force, Legacy, and Joseph Sikora, aka Tommy, is expected to lead this new series alongside Michael Rainey Jr., aka Tariq, according to Deadline. I personally don't know how I feel about them reporting this prior to the final season of Force personally, because I feel like it would have been better not knowing Tommy's fate going into Force Season 3. But at the same time, I also understand why they reported it, because they also want viewers knowing that they have something else planned after Force as well. Not to mention, hopefully, production for Power Legacy starts soon, and it could potentially start taking place before Force ends anyway. And the second clue, other than knowing that Tommy will be alive at the end of the Force series, is the announcement video that Joseph Sikora made when they announced that Season 3 would be Force's final season. In this video, he said that Season 3 is the final chapter for Tommy's journey in Chicago. But don't worry, Tommy's journey is far from over. This post also let us know that Tommy would survive because his journey wasn't over. But at the same time, I thought it could have possibly been a trick or something like that, and he could have been talking about Tommy's journey continuing in Power Origins. But with the announcement of Power Legacy, it's pretty much confirmed that Tommy will survive. But the second clue that comes from that video is that Tommy's journey will continue somewhere other than Chicago. So when Tommy's journey picks up in Power Legacy, Tommy will no longer be living in the city of Chicago, leaving the question, why did Tommy leave Chicago behind? Because leaving behind Chicago, he's potentially leaving behind his love interest Mireya, his mother Kate, his brother JP, and his nephew D-Mac, unless he takes them with him wherever he goes for his next chapter. In Season 1, Tommy began to learn the lay of the land in Chicago and also began to make his name ring out in the streets of the city as well. But in Season 2, Tommy started making moves, partnering with Diamond Samson and forming a coalition in an attempt to be the sole distro for the city of Chicago, while also backdooring his plug in Season 2, Miguel, getting a direct line to Che at the end of Season 2. But in the process, Tommy gained some enemies and some people who were gunning for his spot, specifically talking about Miguel Garcia, Jannard Sampson, and Shanti, in addition to having Vic Flynn snitching on him and the feds on his heels. But Tommy also talked about in Season 2 not only backdooring Miguel, but ultimately backdooring Che also, saying they should be working with the cartel directly. Keep it in mind that Che isn't the actual boss, but a high-ranking member of the cartel known as the Cartel Rep. So if Force ends the way Tommy has planned, this means that he'll have a direct line to the Estrada cartel. And if this happens, the reason why Tommy could potentially be leaving Chicago could be because he's moving to Cali to run the ports and oversee the shipments coming in, potentially leaving his business partner Diamond in Chicago to run the day-to-day business back there. If Tommy has his way, maybe him and Mireya even get married and have a child as they move to California also. And I know a lot of people say there's no happy endings in Power, but since this isn't Tommy's final chapter anyway, it's not his ending. So I don't see any problem giving Tommy a happy ending for this particular chapter. But on the other hand, Tommy leaving Chicago could be forced and not voluntarily, similar to the way he was forced to leave New York at the end of Power. Tommy left New York originally because he was in danger from the Savello mob after killing Joe Proctor and Savello mob capo Benny Savello. Then after Tasha snitched on Tommy, lying on him, saying that he killed Ghost, Tommy ultimately faked his death and considers himself dead in New York. But with that said, the word has begun to spread back on the streets of New York that Tommy is alive. Keep it in mind that Miguel and the Insane Prince gang did recon work on Tommy back in New York after Diamond brought him around for the first time. because when Tommy came back for the second time without Diamond, Nasi told Tommy that Chico, Julio's boy in Queens, said what's up. And either though I don't think Chico was ever shown on screen in Power, that one person knowing that Tommy is alive and living in Chicago is enough for the news to begin to spread about Tommy back in the streets of New York. Either though at least when the Chicago feds tried contacting New York, the Eastern District swore to them that Tommy Egan was dead. So knowing that Tommy's leaving Chicago at the end of Force, if he's forced out, it will most likely be because of heat from law enforcement, or he could potentially be in danger like he was in New York when he left New York in danger from the Savello mob. Possibly backdooring Che goes wrong, and he could be fleeing Chicago because he could be in danger from the Estrada cartel. Getting me to the question, if Tommy is forced out of Chicago and doesn't leave Chicago to expand CBI business, who will be running Chicago at the end of Power Book Force? Right now, the top players in the game other than Tommy would be Diamond and Miguel, because of the fact they're the only two people other than Tommy that deal directly with Che. And Miguel will be looking to bounce back after taking L's all season 2, planning to take Tommy Egan off the board. But he also knows that he'll have to do it indirectly, at least right now, because of the peace agreement with Che. Concerning Diamond, him and Tommy did start to butt heads a little at the end of season 2 when it came to dealing with Vic Flynn, and Diamond feeling like Tommy always has to stay a step ahead of him. Not to mention, Diamond was planning with Gennard behind Tommy's back to hand D-Mac over to King Kilo as a peace offering for D-Mac killing his nephew. So when Tommy leaves Chicago behind, Miguel or Diamond could be who's running the city. But at the same time, I think there's a good possibility that both Miguel and Diamond could be taken off the board in season 3 as well. Then we'd have to look at Gennard and Shanti, and I personally feel like this could be who's running Chicago at the end of Power Book Force, because right now they're moving behind the scenes, plotting against Tommy and Diamond, earning their trust with the ultimate plan of fattening the pig before the slaughter. They want to get CBI running robust with control over the city before taking Tommy and Diamond off the board. And there's also other gangs in the city of Chicago to keep an eye out on as well. There's Rojas gang. Rojas is currently in prison and was Diamond Sampson's biggest rival. Diamond put in Rojas in a wheelchair, but in season 2, Rojas was forced to work with CBI anyway, moving product through the prisons. Rojas's people run deep on the outside too, keeping in mind that Tommy had to kill one of Rojas's men at the zoo in season 2. So I can see Rojas getting out of prison at some point in season 3, trying to reclaim the streets of Chicago. And there's also the leader of the Yardis, Zamos, who was mentioned in season 1 but we never saw on screen. At one point they were supposed to meet with the Yardis in season 1, but it never happened because law enforcement interrupted that meeting. But it was never said what happened to their leader, Zamos. I don't think he was mentioned for no reason, so I can definitely see him coming back into play in season 3 also. Then there's the wild cards to keep an eye on as well, my young boys, D-Mac and Marshall, who got to probably be at least 18 or 19 by this point in time, and got to be ready to start making real moves in the game. And there you have it. Leave your thoughts, theories, and predictions in the comments.